Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN, the Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show, every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here as always with Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinvold. Wow, I got your name wrong.
Scheinvold.
Casey. And Ross the Boss.
Casey Seinfeld, we call him. Seinfeld. No, shite. Vlad's the Bone, Casey Seinfeld. Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss. I'm coming to you from the city of lipstick, we call it, Hollywood, California. I'm excited. The Yankees are in town tomorrow, Casey Seinfeld. It's a 3-game series. LA's going crazy. All the New Yorkers are going to be there. It's going to be half New York Yankee fans, half Dodger fans. It's going to be a bloodfest the next 3 days in Dodger Stadium. I can't wait.
It's bringing back old memories. Wasn't it like the 81 World Series? Yankees, Dodgers? I think that's right.
81, 77, correct?
Yeah, I was going to say it was like 3 times in a 10-year
77
period.
was a bunch. And guys, who's the hottest team in baseball, Casey?
The hottest team in baseball right now is the Cincinnati Reds.
5 in a row. We came from the bottom feeders now. Now we're starting to play some baseball.
I mean, you've got a lot of young guys coming up. I mean, let's start. We're talking headlines, but Matt McClain has got to be one of the headlines. I mean, he's ridiculous. What do we even make of him? Is he? I know he's not going to be this good, but how good is he going to be, Ross?
I mean,
well, Casey's a prospect guy.
Okay, so the Reds lineup, it's going to be McClain at third. It's going to be Ela De La Cruz at short, and then we have India, and then probably. And Joey Votto is going to come back and play.
Yeah, it's got to be CES though. Like
it is.
How exciting will that infield be if they have them all up there at once? I mean, it's a good time to be a Reds fan.
I did want to jump in though. Uncle Ted said what up, but he then said Texas Rangers, and that's who I thought you were talking about with the hottest team in baseball.
Yeah,
Uncle
but
Ted
when Ross, like if he asks you what college they went to, it's Arizona
right, exactly.
State.
I mean, when he asked the hottest team in baseball, it was Arizona State.
Guys, it's like once in a solar eclipse that I can talk about Cincinnati Reds being the hottest team in baseball.
That's true.
So let me have my day in the sun for once.
All right, enjoy it. But I'm just pointing. We gotta respect the audience too. Uncle Ted says 5 series in a row for Texas. I mean, I just picked up Leody Taveras because any piece of the Texas Rangers lineup is something I want at this point.
Casey and I discussed it on Tuesday. I mean, the Rangers are the second best record in the American League, the second most runs in Major League Baseball behind Tampa Bay. I mean, they're on fire, Texas, and they have good pitching too. They usually have like these horrible pitching staff and good hitting. This year, their pitching's pretty good. Without the groom, Casey Seinfeld, without the groom, he's hurt.
DeGrom, it's close. Have you seen Josh Jung might be the hottest hitter in baseball right now next to Aaron Judge. I mean, the last 2 weeks, 447 with 4 home runs and 12 RBIs. Last 30 days, what is it? 318 with 22 runs scored, 6 home runs on the season. He's batting 295 with 12 home runs, 40 runs scored, 37 RBIs. I mean, the guy is he might be the best third baseman in the American League right now offensively.
Wow.
I mean, the real question is just with him from a fantasy standpoint is his batting average. It's not going to hold up at that level, obviously, but where is it going to settle is the question.
He was never a 70 or 80 hit tool guy. He was probably in that 50 range, which probably would put you around 250 to 265, somewhere in there. But that's above average. And if you're putting on 40 home runs and driving in 100 runs with a 265 batting average, guess what? You're an all-star nowadays. A fantasy all-star.
Would you guys say he's kind of the next Pete Alonso? He's the third base Pete Alonso? Do we think he's that good?
Well, the thing is about Texas is, the ball flies out of there.
The ball flies out. Yeah, he's in a better park than Alonso. That's the scary part.
With Simeon and with Lowe and that batting, and Corey Seager, right? He was on fire too. Casey Seinfeld, unbelievable.
It's a question of how long he'll be healthy.
With those 4 hitters alone, I mean, they have serious lumber going on in Texas. I agree 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you're in a keeper league or a dynasty league, obviously you want to be going after Josh Jung, but I think he's the real deal. His average is going to fall, but if he can stay at 250 with that kind of power, it's incredible. And I would say from a keeper league standpoint, he'd be the guy I'd be targeting as the next great third base keeper. Now, Uncle Ted says next great Rangers third, and I agree with that for sure.
How about Buddy Bell back in the day?
Buddy Bell,
third baseman for the Rangers.
Buddy Bell and Michael Young.
Yep, I was a big Michael Young fan.
Better now,
But
better now.
speaking
Joe.
of your Reds, Ross, I want to say your Reds still do have my second, not on the team currently, but Eric Davis is still to me maybe the
I
second best
loved Eric
baseball
Davis.
player I ever watched.
Wasn't
after
he the
Ken
first
Griffey
guy who
Sr.
went 40-40?
He might have been. And
Might
if he
have
didn't
been.
get hurt, he might have been a regular 40-40 guy.
When he, Casey, a quick story. When he was living in LA, he lived in Calabasas, and I'm in Tarzana, which is the next city over. I used to see him at this place called the Rack every Sunday watching football. He would watch with all his homies. We watch all the games, and I would go in there with like Eric Davis baseball cards, baseballs, and he would sign everything for me.
Wow.
And he was the best. And then he ended up moving to Arizona, to Chandler, right next door to my friend Rick Cunningham, who we had on the show, who played professional football for 15 years.
I remember interviewing him.
And Rick sees him almost every day now, which is kind of funny because I saw him almost every Sunday at the Rack. So everything. It's a small world sometimes,
especially when you're Ross the Boss. But
Yeah,
okay, Uncle Ted says he was actually saying Young, Beltre, and Jung. I was wondering. I was like, did I miss a reference? But then he said, and this is interesting, Beltre was the best third baseman to ever play. Now, my question, Uncle Ted, is: do you mean for the Rangers, or do you mean ever? Would he even get into that discussion? Guys, what do you say?
Adrian Beltre is I think if you combine offense and defense during his peak, he would have an argument for being on the Mount Rushmore of
Uncle Ted's smoking something today, guys. I mean, seriously. I mean, he's doing something over there. We should
I don't know if he's the best, but he's in.
I mean, Mike Schmidt, hands down, best third baseman ever.
Pete Rose said he was going to be the best third baseman, and he was right.
Pete Rose played many positions, so
Brooks Robinson was pretty good.
No, I was talking about how Pete Rose told Mike Schmidt in his rookie season that he was going to be the best third baseman ever. Do you know this story? And look what happened. I mean, it helps when Pete Rose endorses you. You start to believe in yourself. So let's talk other headlines, guys. What are the other main things going on right now? Because we know the fantasy landscape shifts all the time. You've got to be paying attention. I'll give you one. I mean, I think Royce Lewis, our cover boy today, it's a big story. I mean, I was really excited about him last year. Then he gets hurt for a long period of time, and now he's finally back. How good is he going to be?
Well, I mean, he's playing really good ball right now.
He always
the Minnesota
plays good
Twins.
ball.
The Twins are like they went from like 10-1 to 7-1 to win the American League odds wise because of Royce Lewis. But I mean, he is the real deal. This guy. I mean, this guy does everything. I mean, we'll see what happens next month. But I like this kid.
So here's the other thing. He's going to get third base eligibility. That's the main place he's playing now. And I think that can be a game changer even in shallow redraft leagues because third base just sucks this year. We know that. And so if you can find a guy like Royce Lewis, that's a big deal. Let's talk other headlines. What do you think are the things that people need to be thinking about right now? I have some others in mind, but I'm not going to step on your toes. Case, what do you think is going on right now that you want to report on?
Well, I think the biggest thing, we're at that point now. We have 2 full months of baseball, right? So we've been talking for weeks about, is this person going to snap out of their funk? Is this going to be a season-long thing? Is this guy playing over his head? And when's it going to end? When you're looking at some of these pitchers, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Alek Manoah, some of these pitchers who are really, really people you drafted probably in the top 50 to 75 picks, the first 6 or 7 rounds of your redraft league, they suck. And I think it's finally time to say, maybe we cast them aside and look at some of these other guys who might be better pitchers. I mean, I don't think Alek Manoah is going to turn it around this year. Like I've been one of the ones on the fence since the beginning of May saying, no, he can still turn it around. It's just a mechanical thing. He's fine. But then even last night, it was painful to watch him pitch. And I think you're seeing that with Aaron Nola, who's lost a mile or 2 on his fastball. Blake Snell is, although he pitched great the other day, but again, it's like 6 innings or 5 innings, even when he does pitch well.
I mean, the thing about Alek is this, Casey, he gained some weight. His weight is up from last year. And I think he's the first pitcher victim, I would say, that the pitch clock is really taking effect on. I mean, he's a pitcher that always took his time to pitch, and this pitch clock, I think, really messed his mental frame up. I mean, I'm not a mental doctor, but I play one on TV. But again, He is not the same pitcher he was last year, and I'm blaming the pitch clock, Casey Scheinfeld. That's what I'm doing.
Well, look, it very well may be the pitch clock, but it doesn't matter what it is. It's a question of whether it is fixable in season. And with some of those players, it's been a big enough sample size now that it's panic button time and you can practically cut them. Because you can't get anything for them. Even Sandy Alcantara is pitching that way. Like, these are guys who you drafted as your first or second pitcher in fantasy, and you just can't count on them. I mean, so I think we're at the point in the season now where the biggest story to me is it time to cut bait? And it is.
And it is on a lot of players. Ross, what were you going to say?
I don't know if you saw this, but Noah Schoengard, did I say his name right?
Noah Syndergaard.
Syndergaard.
Thor.
I always mess his name up. So Noah Syndergaard of the Dodgers, looks like Thor, was quoted after his not so good start the other day by saying that, I would give up my firstborn if I was the pitcher I was years ago. Because I'm not the same guy.
Yeah, he called himself the weak link.
And that's a good example. It's like, these guys get injuries and they get hurt, and they're, look at Max Scherzer. He's not the same guy anymore. Everybody thought he was the best pitcher in the National League this year. He's not even close. Yeah, he's getting destroyed. He's pitching right now. He pitched pretty well today, actually. But
he's got a problem in his upper back. But it's a question of, can he rebound? I think that's the key question we're asking. At 2 months in, what are we looking at in terms of rebounds? Are these players going to be who we hope they will be at any point? Meanwhile, Uncle Ted points out Cedric Mullins.
He went on the IL a couple days ago.
I thought it was yesterday. Yeah,
or yesterday.
With a groin strain.
A groin strain, 10-day DL. Which means he'll be gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah, and sometimes those things linger too. But it's a terrible loss, especially because of what he can do. He can do everything, so it's very hard to find a replacement for him. This is getting back to Royce Lewis. Uncle Ted said, "Just don't play Lewis in the outfield. We don't want him to get injured again." Now, a couple questions about big pitchers in the minors. Is Big Ben Brown coming now that Steele is out?
I mean, he certainly could be. He's if you remember, he was kind of the big piece that the Cubs got back from the Phillies in the David Robertson trade. What was that, 2 or 3 years ago? I don't know, but he's like
time warp. Who knows?
He's like 6'7". He was kind of projected as a number 3, number 4 starter, but the way he's been pitching this year, he's got like 40 some odd strikeouts in 20 some innings and a 2 something ERA. Like, he's been absolutely dominant. And the Cubs are surprisingly not terrible. But I don't think they're built for the long run, right? I don't think they're built to compete this year still. I don't trust Marcus Stroman. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to give him a try. Teams are incentivized now in the CBA to call up their prospects, which makes prospects even more exciting for me.
I know, as if you weren't excited enough. Now, let's talk, speaking of prospects, and Casey, you're our main prospect guy here because you go crazy for him. Emmett Sheehan time. What do you think?
He's a strikeout machine. He's dominating AA in the Dodgers system right now. He's buried behind, Miller and Gavin Stone on the prospect depth chart. He's not on the 40-man roster. That's going to be the challenge for some of these players, especially for a team like the Dodgers who are winning their division and competing. Like, who do you kick off the 40-man roster to make room for him? I don't know enough about the structure of their 40-man roster. I just know he's not on it. I think Sheehan, again, not the top prospect coming into the season, but he's been consistently awesome. Even when he struggled a little with giving up runs, he's still striking out like, I think it's 13 point some batters per 9. So he's still throwing just filthy stuff. I don't know. I don't know if they're willing to have 3 or 4 rookies in their rotation, which is what you'd be looking at as Sheehan comes up.
See, I think Schoengard's done with the Dodgers. They're going to cut him loose. Syndergaard.
Just call him Thor. But
I think Syndergaard. I think he's done. I don't think he's going to.
He certainly sounds like it. But hopefully, he's not done as a father. He shouldn't give up his firstborn.
No. He'll be cut, and the Dodgers will be forced to bring up somebody to take his place. I don't know who it's going to be, but the Dodgers are somebody that will go in the market and get another pitcher before the All-Star break. I mean, here's
the question I have though. Whereas hitters, when you get a rookie hitter called up, usually they don't do what Matt McClain's doing right now. And I'm not saying Matt McClain's necessarily going to keep that up. I hope he does. But, these pitchers, it's hard to distinguish who's going to be, Brandon Pfaadt and just not pitch that well and not come along fast enough. And then who's going to come up. Tanner Bybee is a good example. I think he's already pitching really well. Will he keep it up? I don't know. But
he's already justified the decision. Yeah.
Right. But, it's a question of how do you distinguish? So Uncle Tad had a question here that relates to this. Is AJ Smith Strover, sorry, this year's Strider, which of course, as an Atlanta Brave pitcher, it would come to mind.
Say that 5 times fast.
That's a tongue twister. But how do you distinguish which of these guys to bet on? And sometimes you're going to take the guy that you get, because everybody's grabbing at the same guys. But who are you looking at as kind of a surefire thing, either if they've already been called up or they're waiting in the wings?
Pitchers wise, it's hard for me.
See, that's the thing. It's hard to,
because I loved Kyle Harrison and Gavin Williams. Those were my 2 favorite prospect pitchers coming into the season. And Gavin Williams is still pitching really well, but again, because of, I don't know if it's contract issues, 40-man roster issues, you got Bybee and others coming up before him. And Harrison, while he's still striking out guys, isn't pitching nearly as well as he did last year. Smith Strover is pitching great this year. I mean, seven quality starts, 33 innings and 45 strikeouts. Not that, but not Sean. I mean, Spencer Strider's strikeout numbers are asinine. To compare anybody to that is unfair. I think Smith Strover could be a very good starter this year if they called him up and gave him a chance. He's only 20. He's a high school product. He doesn't have a lot of time in professional baseball yet. And I think that's a big factor. Some of these guys who come in and do really well right away, it's very rare that their ascent is that fast as a pitcher straight out of high school. More often you see college pitchers, and typically the plan is to break him into the bullpen. So I think that's where they use him if they called him up. And then if there's injuries going forward more, he might get the next crack at the rotation. But
and some of it's team context too. I mean, if this guy were pitching for the A's, he'd probably be in the majors at this point, because they have tons of openings. The Braves are a really good team.
But the Braves are already using Schuster. Like, they've already shown they'll give rookies a chance. They use Strider in a competitive year. So the good thing for him is he's in a organization, kind of like you said, organizational context, that is willing to push rookies fast. Somebody like the Yankees, not willing to push fast, never has been. But he's not in there where you're mired in this. Am I going to be up and down and up and down or up and down?
And remember, it's all about injuries too. I mean, Max Fried, you brought up the Braves. Max Fried is hurt. They have some holes to fill in their starting staff. So some guys will get the opportunity to pitch. So if some of these teams stay healthy, a lot of these guys won't get the opportunity. It just depends on who's getting hurt, who's on the roster, and what's going on each team. It has sometimes they don't want to bring somebody up, but they're not going to start them.
It's an interesting
the bullpen.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, though, the idea that strikeouts matter for prospect pitchers. They really do, because if you strike a guy out, they definitely can't get on base. You can't have accidental things happen. So it's a way that people can mitigate risk. Apparently, they just added AJ Smith Strover.
And I read that too. I think they're going to start him in the bullpen, though. I think that from what I've been reading, the plan is to start him in the bullpen, use him either in long relief or in earlier late inning.
I mean, also, I would not entirely be surprised if somehow he climbs in the conversation of the closer if Iglesias starts struggling again. I mean, Iglesias' velocity is back up, so it doesn't look like it's actually going to be trouble. But okay, let's talk any other headlines before we move into.
Well, I mean, there's a few. The Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that none of us predicted will be doing well. They're keeping pace with the Dodgers, guys. I mean, they're winning games. I mean, they're a team. I mean, they're young, hungry, and they probably have the best pitcher in the National League with Gallen.
That's what I like to hear.
Dan, did you win that trade? Holy crap!
Gallen is, I think, the best pitcher in the National League. I mean, the team that no one predicted, no one gave him any chance at all to make the playoffs. I think if you look at their team and their youth and the players they have on their team, they're a pretty good team. And I like their manager too. I feel I'm rooting for them to win the West. I hope they do, but I don't think they can beat the Dodgers just because the Dodgers have a $200 million payroll and the Arizona is like 50 million. So it's not really that fair. But I would say that's a headline. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's definitely a huge headline. I mean, when teams like that, we were talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates at the beginning of the season and how they were overachieving, but the Arizona Diamondbacks seem to be doing it in a way that looks like they can maybe make a deep run. And when you got a guy anchoring your staff like Zach Gallen and you got Corbin Carroll in your lineup, I think they are for real.
And it also depends on the way the media shapes the narrative, right? The narrative isn't how well Arizona is doing, it's how poorly San Diego is doing, right? So, and so that's all we hear about, how much they're struggling, how much they're not living up to expectations, instead of focusing on the fact of, hey, maybe Arizona is just better than we thought. Let's frame it as San Diego was worse than we thought. I mean, and let's be honest, San Diego's been terrible, 185 with runners in scoring position when you pay like $700 million for your lineup to be successful. So
it's a great point. And, as a fantasy player, if you get swayed by what the media says, you can make lots of bad decisions just based on what they're saying. So tune that out, look at the numbers underneath, and listen, even if it's supposed to be a bad team, but you see players performing, scoop them up, unless it shows that they're just getting lucky. Uncle Ted points out Dre Jameson is back as well. He's pitching out of the bullpen, isn't he?
He's not starting.
He's been. The thing is, he was pitching better in the bullpen, so I think it's a great fit. And I'd rather have him pitching in the bullpen. Let's see. Diamondbacks have the best pitching coach ever, Brent Strom. I actually didn't know who the pitching coach was there, but he's clearly doing a good job. Ross, were you aware of the pitching coach there?
Yes, I'm very aware.
That's the kind of thing you would know.
I was not.
No, you know about the prospect. Ross knows about things like that.
Well, I just because my second home's Arizona, so I keep tabs on that team.
Can I ask you guys a question?
I was ask. Yes.
And this is going to seem ridiculous, but when you read the headlines in either fantasy or even Major League Baseball, you see it's Pete Alonso, it's Aaron Judge, it's Shohei Ohtani. Has Ronald Acuna actually become underrated?
Right, as the number, kind of like the Beatles did eventually.
I mean,
no, not even close. I mean, he's the favorite to win the MVP now.
He's the best player in baseball,
and he's a favorite to the MVP.
But he's not talked about enough.
But actually,
again, he doesn't have a huge personality. He doesn't do many interviews. He's not out there that much. I never see him doing any commercials or anything.
Right, but I think Casey's point is that you can be the number one player in baseball and still be underrated. I think Aaron Judge was last year. I mean, he was if you looked at his ranking, you're like, well, he's number one, but this guy's number two. The gap between 1 and 2 was pretty huge last year.
He's the favorite to win the MVP. And people are talking about him in baseball circles. He's definitely right now the best player in the National League. So I don't feel he's underrated. He's getting all the props right now. Atlanta lost 2 out of 3 to Oakland. I don't know if you guys remember this week they lost 2 out of 3 to Oakland, which is
but Boston lost like
actually
3 in a row to the Reds. So,
well,
how dare you, sir? I'll say it for Ross. Uncle Ted points out Strom built the Astros rotation, so this guy's obviously got some great things working. Guys, let's move to waivers though, because some people came here to find out who to pick up. So I'm looking just positionally. Something jumped out at me as I was looking at catchers, 60% and under in rostership.
Who is it?
Francisco Alvarez is only 55% roster.
That was what I said on Tuesday.
Tell him why. Casey, give your spiel on him.
Well, I don't have to. I mean, Dan can give the same spiel. The guy's playing incredible. They released Gary Sanchez, who, by the way, in a play in San Diego last night, I don't know if you watched it, proved why everybody releases him, and he's been on like 5 teams in 2 years.
But hold on. Whoa. Wait a second. 2 games with San Diego, 2 home runs for Gary Sanchez.
Good for him.
Casey, you better take that back right now.
And then gave the win to the other team because he just didn't know how to field his position.
Okay. Well, we all make mistakes.
So, right, we all make mistakes. But being a Yankees fan and watching how many perfect pitches became pass balls because the kid couldn't catch, was frustrating. But Francisco Alvarez has been the top prospect in the Mets system for a few years, a top 10 prospect in the minors for a couple of years, and like for power. And this year he has 8 home runs and only 108 at bats and is batting .260 and driving in runs. And like, he might be one of the top 3 or 4 fantasy catchers right now. And he's only 55% owned. And that is ridiculous.
That's the insane thing. I mean, this is a part of the season where in fantasy baseball, it doesn't happen in fantasy football where people tune out so much, but in fantasy baseball, people start to tune out around June if they're not doing that well. And then you can have a guy like Francisco Alvarez, who is probably legitimately a top 5 catcher right now, sitting out there in 45% of leagues. Go get him now. Like, stop whatever you're doing and go pick him up now. Look, even if you have a guy like Will Smith as your catcher or Real Muto, pick him up anyway. Then you can trade the other guy. I mean, you're not going to find a lot more value on the waiver wire than Francisco Alvarez at 55% rostered. It's insane. So
there is somebody else he was 45%, but now I could be more. Is John McClain of the Cincinnati Reds? I call him John McClain, so don't correct.
Okay, good. I'm just
don't correct me.
That's fine. It was the third time, so I just wanted to make sure you weren't having.
When Casey and I do our show on Tuesday, 4:00, 4:00 Eastern, 1:00 Pacific on the same channel, I noticed that McClain was like 45%. I don't know if he's over 60 now. I didn't check.
I will check for you.
But I mean, and we both are like looking at each other like every league I'm in, he's taken. But I guess there's some really bad leagues out there that didn't take him.
Well, there definitely are. He's up to 53% roster.
So, I mean, I would say if he's available in your league, he's under 60%. He's the number 1 pickup of the week to pick up immediately if he's available right now.
Well, and Francisco Alvarez is another. I mean, because he's a catcher.
He's number 2. Okay. They tie. It's a tie.
No. Look, I'm not arguing with you. Matt McClain can easily be the number 1 pickup here, but I wanted to hear from you. It sounds like you think he's going to keep this up. I hope he does. Why do you think he will?
Well, again, knowing that ballpark really well, and it's a hitter-friendly ballpark in Cincinnati, it's just going to get better and better for this guy. I mean, the Reds half their games are in Cincinnati, so obviously the pressure, he doesn't mind it. He likes the pressure, and he's hitting great the first couple of weeks in the major league level. So I don't know why he would do worse. I just feel he's just going to get better with fine wine.
The only question I have is, will pitchers start to figure something out about him? But he seems like he's a tremendous hitter. I can't argue with you in terms of number 1 pickup. Uncle Ted did mention another catcher, Gabriel Moreno for the Diamondbacks. He's looked pretty good. Only 25% rostered. So if you need somebody, scoop him up. And catcher is pretty thin position as usual. Royce Lewis also. What's his percentage at now?
Would you like me to look?
Yeah, would you check on that?
And what's De La Cruz?
56.
Wow. What's De La Cruz at? Yeah, check his numbers too. Uncle Ted, meanwhile, says if you like Ronald, wait till you see his younger brother, Luis Angel Acuna, for the Rangers.
He's a middle infielder for the Rangers, AA team.
Yeah.
Ellie De La Cruz is at 40%.
Oh, that's way too low. I mean, we have to keep in mind there are some leagues that are like 8-team leagues with a shallow bench. And I get that. Anthony Rodriguez, good to see you here. Thanks for joining us. Uncle Ted says Mike Soroka number 2, then McClain number 3. He had Royce Lewis number 1. Definitely all arguably the top pickups. But isn't it great that at this point in the season there's this kind of value on the wire?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's not even just because people are tuning out. It's because of people of guys emerging and prospects coming up. Now, Anthony Rodriguez begs to differ about Ronald's younger brother, Luis Angel Acuna, is not the prospect his older brother.
No, he's not. He's smaller. He's only like 5'8" or 5'7", something like that. Is
that right?
Not as much pop, certainly. But hey, if genetics are good, genetics are good. If the guy, like positional value, being a second baseman, if you can have some pop and speed at second base, you can have a long career.
He's not going to get any playing time, this guy. There's another guy playing second base for them right now that's pretty good.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
like
also keep in mind he also could end up getting traded. Maybe the Rangers are looking like, okay, we're here to compete. Let's trade for an ace starter and we'll send him away. That could easily happen. Let's talk about first base. If you have needs at first base, We're looking at 60% and under rostered.
I'm going to give you props. I mentioned him on Tuesday, and he had an unbelievable game yesterday, like 6 RBIs, I think, Casey. Your guy Naylor for the Guardians? I almost said the I word. I didn't say it. And I mean, he's hitting like over 300 the past 2 weeks, and he's just been destroying the ball. And again, on Tuesday we mentioned his name, and then Wednesday he has the game of his life.
Yeah,
4 hits.
And he's only 47% owned. So
yeah, so I think the number one pickup at first base. What do you think, Casey? Naylor or not?
Yeah, he's got to be up there. I mean, Spencer Steer has had a great couple weeks as well, but he's at 63%, so I don't know if that disqualifies him. And
what about Miguel Vargas? I mean, I know he qualifies at second base.
Below 60% still?
He's 40% rostered.
That's crazy. Okay.
Yeah, but he's hitting he's not hitting that well, and
he's not hitting for much power right now.
And his batting average isn't that great either right now.
I'm looking into the numbers now.
I kind of dropped him in a couple of my leagues too.
I think for keeper or dynasty leagues, obviously he's got more value than those other guys. Exactly. But in redraft leagues, I might rather have a Naylor or a JD Davis right now, who's playing really well for San Francisco.
I could see it. I mean, I personally, this is funny coming from a Guardians fan, but I don't trust Naylor to keep it up. He has these huge games.
But he'll rock the baby.
Oh, I hate that. I hate it. It's so annoying. It even annoyed me. I was like, Jesus Christ, you're not that good.
No, Naylor's definitely a streaker.
I'm more excited about Naylor's brother, Bo Naylor, the catcher.
Definitely. I mean, look, Josh Naylor will have games where he drives in 8 runs, and then you'll go chasing those stats, and he'll strike out like 140 times in a month. I mean, that's not going to happen. But
he's a streaker. We all know he's a streaker. He's not somebody that's going to be hitting 400.
No, you're right. But I think you're going to pick him up, and you're going to find he's a bad version of Kyle Schwarber, which is really saying something. Is he cuttable, by the way? Can I cut him finally?
Who's that?
Casey? Kyle Schwarber. I probably would.
Batting average, yeah. I mean,
he's doing nothing. Even his power production isn't that. I mean, look, is it possible that I'll cut him and then I'll have a month like he did in June last year, where it's 12 homers?
So let me ask you this: do you think would that be the good person to put in a 2-for-1 trade for you?
It would be, except in our main league, people are too wise to it, and they're just like, I don't know.
Kyle Schwarber still gets name value because people can stomach a 200 or 210 batting average if the chance for 12 to 18 home runs in a month is there.
The thing about Kyle Schwarber is this, and he did this last year, guys. You guys remember this? He went on like a 2-week tear where he had like 10 home runs in 2 weeks. Remember this? Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, so he'll, in July or August, he's going to do the same thing. So I would bench him and just wait till he gets hot.
That's what I'm doing, and then after he gets hot, then I'm going to trade him. Okay, now Anthony Rodriguez asked, "What about Lamonte Wade Jr.? He's getting talked up in a lot of communities for his plate discipline. What do you guys think about Lamonte Wade?"
I think he's a good hitter. His power is not his power is not legitimate. Like, I don't know what he has on the season. Let me look here. I know he hasn't done anything.
I think he has 7 homers on the season.
He was hot 3 weeks ago. We would talk, Casey. I talked about him on our show,
but
and he was hot. I mean, again,
he's a 2 to 3 category contributor to me at best.
There you go. I'm not a big fan, but the Giants are playing really good baseball right now.
And I don't want to. I'm not like trampling on him or anything. I just don't think that's not what is going to excite me if he's not going to give you anything consistently in the power RBI department.
All right, let's move to second base. If you had to recommend somebody, let's say somebody's desperate, they need second base help. Could be a trade target, by the way, but let's talk about who people could pick up. Ryan Noda, by the way, and Alex Kirilloff were also mentioned in first base discussions here. But who at second base would you recommend picking up?
Well, I guess my main one right now might be Willie Castro in Minnesota. He's plays second, short, third, and outfielder. So he qualifies at 3 of the most shallow positions in second, third, and outfield.
That's pretty impressive.
And in the last 2 weeks, 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases, and a 357 average. So I don't know this guy. He's been around. He's more of a utility guy than a cornerstone piece of a team. But he shows you what he can do when he's hot, and Minnesota's offense has suddenly come to life. So that would probably be one of the guys I'd be looking at.
It's interesting because Zach Ministry has almost the exact same numbers. I'm not sure that I would trust him necessarily, and he has the same position eligibility. Luis Garcia, sorry, not Garcia, Anthony Rodriguez asked about Luis Garcia. If you're desperate, what do you guys think?
I'm not a fan. I don't trust him.
Let's just note, he said, if you're desperate.
Yes, he put a good qualifier in there.
If you're desperate, yes. I mean, I'd rather have Castro. I'd rather have a few other guys that I don't know who else is available, but if Castro is available, why don't you pick up him?
I mean, at the same time, none of these guys are changing the world. What about a guy like Trevor Story? He's on the IL, coming back soon.
When's he? Whoa! When's he coming back?
Let's see. I'm going to check.
And for how long?
He was coming back soon.
I mean, he had major surgery.
He continues to ramp up hitting and throwing, but still hasn't been cleared for rehab games. Targeting a mid to late July return. So I would say don't worry about him for now.
Okay. Well, Adam Duvall, to stay in the subject of the Red Sox, Adam Duvall's playing right now in the minor leagues. He's in Nantucket, I think, for the Red Sox, but he's not available to come up till June 11th.
Talk about a one-trick pony. I mean, don't get me wrong. His one trick is
Casey,
good.
Just so you know, what's he hitting this year? Go look it up real quick.
Adam Duvall?
I'm going to guess it's 114.
Opposite.
441. Oh, that's right. He had a really big start to the season. I forgot. He had a really big start to the season. It's amazing. Think how fast the season goes. I remember that he was crushing.
I read that he's coming back June 11th. That's when he's eligible to come off the DL. And then I said, well, I have him on. I have him stashed away in a couple of my leagues. What was he doing? I totally forgot. And then I remembered he had this hot start. Then he got hurt, and then I have to wait for him to come back now.
All right, a couple other names mentioned by the audience. Taylor Walls. He's had a really interesting season. He plays really well when he plays, but he just doesn't play enough.
And his exit. This is one of the ones where if you look at the underlying metrics, you can see that he's getting lucky. His exit velocity is bad. His BABIP is high. Like those sorts of things tend to regress back to the mean.
And I agree, and I think that's good to pay attention to. But sometimes those numbers just don't bear out anyway. They just
it's true.
Anyway.
But if I'm going to bet on something, I'm going to.
Okay, true. But if you're thinking, well, I'm going to pick up, Zach Ministry. Versus that guy, I'd rather have Taylor Walls probably and just take my chances with it. He just is playing well.
What about Zach Ministry?
No.
Did you pull a Ross?
I did.
Zach Short, I believe
think I did.
The Tigers. Can you imagine growing up and your last name is Short? It's just so many jokes there.
I hope he's like 6'6".
I mean, if he was tall, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, but Zach Short. I mean, I looked at his numbers recently. You got to be really desperate to pick him up. He doesn't play every day. You got to watch when he plays. And he's
5'10", so it's confusing.
Is he 5'10"?
Really short? Yes, I just checked. 5'10".
Yeah. So Zach Short, no, he's not on my list to pick up right now.
What about Jose Caballero?
Jose Caballero.
Well done. I think you pronounced it right, as long as I did. What do we think about this guy?
I don't know much about him. Hold on.
I know he is.
Checking into it.
Again, he's not on my target list.
Well, okay, but in 75 at bats to have 6 stolen bases and 2 home runs.
I see what he's doing.
And 14 runs scored.
But now look at this. Anthony Rodriguez points out Taylor Walls has 15 stolen bases. The only problem with that is that so many of them were on people's bench because we just didn't know if he was going to start. But clearly he's doing some really good stuff. And even if he isn't getting lucky, if he's got 15 stolen bases, he's got room on the roster.
And he can help your fantasy roster. Right.
Exactly. All right, let's move to shortstop. Who would you recommend picking up there if people are in need? You don't even have to be desperate. Let's just talk about
De La Cruz, Ellie immediately. I mean, under 50% he's right now. So,
and Matt McClain, who we also talked about.
Matt McClain. I mean, these guys, these young shortstops are going to be coming up quickly. So, if you don't pick them up this week, I don't think they'll be available next week. So, I suggest you do it immediately. Don't worry about the older guys. The older guys will always be there.
I want to go back to second base for 1 second.
Okay.
Who has I already mentioned San Diego's stats with runners in scoring position of batting 185.
Okay.
But who is their best batter right now with runners in scoring position?
Juan Soto.
No.
Chillingsworth.
Think
Nelson Cruz.
Think Jose Bautista with a sore chin.
Oh, I'm confused.
Rougned Odor. Remember when he slugged Jose Bautista?
Yes.
Rougned Odor, the second baseman who can't hit his weight, is leading them in with batting and runners in scoring position. And it shows you like anybody can have a really hot streak and be really effective. And it's important. See, Anthony Rodriguez knew. Look at that.
There
Way to go, Anthony.
Well done. Okay, now listen, we're running low on time. So Royce Lewis, huge pickup at shortstop. Matt McClain, also we're highly recommending. Anybody else you would add before we move to third base, guys?
You can throw Brendan Donovan on the list. He's doing well for St. Louis. Always seems to score runs and steal bags.
And by the way, let's just note, Paul DeJong, his average in the last 14 days
is exactly where we said it would be a couple weeks ago.
Yep. You've got to trust history. Let's move to third base, guys. Then we'll do outfield and pitchers. Third base it's been an area of need all season. JD Davis keeps it up. He's only 45% rostered. He's continued to hit. I mean, I'm not in love with the pickup, but if you need somebody, I definitely could see picking him up and just riding him as long as you can. Who else would you recommend, guys?
I mean, we named some of the people who are multi-position eligible. You got Willie Castro. You got,
by the way,
Brendan Donovan.
And Royce Lewis, meanwhile, I think is probably your number one third base pickup because he's gonna get that eligibility. I would pick him up before any third baseman out there. Ross, anybody to add at third base?
No, it's third base this week was probably the most shallow position.
It has been all year.
I mean, I wish I had like a gem to pick up right now, but it's these multi-position guys that are eligible.
I mean,
to pick up.
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has been very good the last 2 weeks, but I'm not excited about that.
No, he's a utility guy. Yep.
All right, how about outfield? Uncle Ted said buy low on Duran in Texas. So
Ezekiel Duran,
Ross, you were into Ezekiel Duran. Do you think it's worth buying low at this point? Is he going to rebound?
Is he still in the IL? I don't think he's playing.
I'm not sure.
I don't think he's playing, Uncle Ted.
I'm going to check, but while I'm checking, guys, tell me about outfielders.
He's still on the IL.
Yeah, he's still in the IL. So yeah, I wouldn't buy him at all if he's not playing and on the IL. There's no market for the guys. So
it depends. No. I mean, if you could pick him up for cheap
if you have space on your IL slot. Yeah,
they're hitting. Everybody on their team is hitting. I mean, if you pick a Ranger up, or you pick a Tampa Bay Ray up, you're going to have some. Your team's going to improve. Doesn't matter.
I wanted to ask you guys for the outfielder. I wanted to ask about Leody Taveras, 15% rostered. He was my recommendation for a pickup this week. And when we make these recommendations, it's not like we're saying, pick this guy up and ignore everybody else. We just want to highlight somebody who we think is a shrewd pickup. And I think he is. He steals bases. He's only 24 years old, and he's playing in the Rangers lineup. So I think he's a great pickup. Other outfield pickups, guys.
I think there's three I'm thinking of. Mitch Haniger in San Francisco is doing great the last couple of weeks. And this is a guy who a few years ago hit over 30 home runs in Seattle. So he certainly has the track record to keep it up. Jack Sawinski, who we talked about last year in Pittsburgh too. This guy I actually think he's just a good player, is tearing the cover off the ball recently. And then Marcell Ozuna in Atlanta, it seems like when he gets on a hot streak and he's not making stupid decisions off the field, he's a heck of a baseball player.
Yep. Sawinski's batting average was just such a drain and continues to be so. I was really excited about him. I thought maybe he was turning the corner. I turned the page on him, but I can see picking him up certainly.
And another guy that just got the DL, I'll keep the Arizona theme going, is Jake McCarthy. He's one of those prospects, young guns. Yep. I mean, he was hurt for the past few weeks, but he's back. And this guy is the real deal. If you need an outfielder, my number one outfielder I would pick up right now is him, just because of the youth factor and just because Arizona is playing so well. Even though they're losing right now 1-0 to the Colorado Rockies, but don't worry about that.
Anthony Rodriguez says Jordan Walker coming back soon. He's only 40% owned and is eligible third base and outfield. Definitely a smart pickup.
I hope so.
With Cedric Mullins
on the back soon. I want to trade him.
What was that?
With Cedric Mullins going on the IL, they picked up Aaron Hicks, which was maybe the worst decision Baltimore's made
Aaron
in 5
Hicks
years.
is probably the worst baseball player I've ever seen.
They have a kid who I've talked about in the minors, Colton Cowser, who is just a stud. He's coming off the IL in the minors in the next day or two, and he has proven he can handle minor league pitching.
It's only a matter of time.
And he's a power speed guy who could fill right in for what they're losing with Cedric Mullins. So if you have an NA spot on your roster or just room on the end of a long bench, Colton Cowser would be a big.
I don't think Hicks is going to be out that long. I mean, not Hicks, excuse me.
Mullins.
I don't think Mullins is going to be gone that long.
I hope not.
Well, they're saying weeks, not days, which is never a.
Oh, all
right.
That's
Quick,
not good.
Quick run through.
I'm recommending don't pick up Hicks. I think he's one of the worst players I've seen in the major league level in a long time.
I don't think anybody's.
And when the Yankees gave him $10 million, I mean, I was just like, oh my! I don't know who's running that team, but they have no idea what they're doing.
Okay, so Uncle Ted says Leody Taveras is badass. Actually, Uncle Ted, I remember you mentioning Leody Taveras a couple weeks ago. I paid attention, and he definitely got my attention. TJ Friedel also doing very well. Brian De La Cruz, Colton Cowser gets a shout out. Mullins could be out months, says Uncle Ted.
That's what I heard too. Yeah.
I certainly hope not, but it is certainly possible, and some reports are saying that. Let's move to starting pitcher, guys. We're just going to make a quick run through of the pitchers. We did talk about pitchers at various points, but if you had to recommend a pickup right now,
go ahead, Case. You go and I'll go.
Well, in relievers, it's Craig Kimbrell and Giovanni Gallegos are both under 60% owned. On the starter side, it's probably Bobby Miller, Jared Schuster.
Bobby Miller was my guy.
Or Tanner Bybee. They're all under 60%.
I think the Dodgers, with Bobby Miller, there was talks of him sitting back down, but I don't think they can sit him down right now. I think they got to keep him.
Yeah, well, I mean, the current setup of their roster and also the way he's pitched.
Yeah.
I just like pitchers who are pitching in parks like Dodger Stadium. It's a pretty good pitcher's park as far as I'm concerned. Ross, what were you going to say?
Also, Brian Bello of Boston. I think I mentioned last week too. He's just, every time he takes the mound, he looks good. I mean, he has great stuff, and he was such a high prospect when he came up with the Red Sox, and now he's pitching great, and I believe he's like 28% owned in Yahoo. So, I mean, he's a decent starter, and I would drop, like we said, drop Alek Manoah. Drop one of those guys that had all this hype, and if
it's time to cut bait. I mean, even a guy like Michael Harris, you could consider cutting, but obviously,
I mean, I'm going to cut Alek Manoah when Dan drops Kyle Schwarber, and then I'll pick up Schwarber, and Dan can pick up Manoah.
Right, we'll do that, and then we'll trade them.
We should make a trade.
We'll trade them for each other. A couple other guys to mention. Uncle Ted did say AJ Smith-Straver again, and certainly a pitcher of interest, Mike Soroka as well. I also just want to mention Domingo Germán. 43% roster. I know, but he's got a .98 whip. I know he got, caught possibly cheating and stuff, but he's got a strikeout per inning. He's playing on a winning team. I'm just saying, if you are looking for pitching help, look at a guy like that.
I hate to bring it up because I'm a Reds fan. You're going to say, okay, you're just picking a guy that's on the Reds because you're a Reds fan. I'm not. And I saw this guy pitch his past 2 starts I watched, and he's pitched really well at Casey Scheinfeld, is Ben Lively. And I know he's been in the league for a little bit. The Reds got him in a trade, but in the past few starts, Casey, this guy has been unhittable. I mean, he's been great.
He's got stuff. Yeah.
And he's striking people out. I mean, if you have room on your roster, he's a streaker. I would suggest maybe picking him up. I don't think it's a bad move.
Okay.
So you said yes, Casey. You believe in Ben Lively.
No, but you do, and I'm proud of you for it.
I think one thing we have to remember: these guys are professionals. They work hard at what they do, and a lot of them can make breakthroughs that you wouldn't see coming.
They deserve respect. Yeah.
Well, just look at Ben Lively's stats.
Oh, will you stop?
All right, now Anthony Rodriguez. We're going to wrap up on this. Anthony Rodriguez says keeping Manoah in Dynasty. I think that's a no-brainer. You don't cut him in Dynasty.
He's 24, 25 years old.
You certainly don't cut Harris in Dynasty. I agree with you, Uncle Ted. I think even though it would be tempting, I wouldn't cut Michael Harris. Here's my question to you. Would you cut Tim Anderson? Because I so want to. I don't think I'm going to cut him. I can't.
All right.
Because if he rebounds at all, he's got trade value, especially in a keeper league. But
There's
I'm
no trade
hating.
value in Tim Anderson in fantasy baseball. There's no trade value
No,
at all.
right now there's not. But
Tell me the categories he's going to help your team with. Go.
runs,
scored, stolen bases,
stolen
and average.
bases,
He
and
can't get on
average.
base. He has 2 stolen bases this year. Go,
No,
keep going.
You've
Okay.
got tunnel
Bye,
vision
Ross.
about now. What I'm saying is, if he starts to play like he should be playing, he can regain value. I just think you can't cut a guy like that or Harris yet. A guy like Schwarber, I think you can cut, but I'm probably going to hold on to him as well.
All
Okay,
right.
Casey, side bet. I say Tim Anderson's cut on Dan's team by July 1st. What do you say?
I'm not cutting him.
What's the bet?
He'll probably be traded at 70% of his value.
Yeah.
No, Uncle Ted, I love Tim Anderson as a person. I think he's great.
I love Tim Anderson too. I don't know what's going on with him this year.
I love his personality.
I
love
traded
the guy.
for him last year for a reason. I love the guy. He does the kind of things I want to see. But
he's just not the same player. He's not hitting. He's batting. He won the batting title twice, and he's not the same player anymore. He's not. Something happened. I don't know what it is. I'll find out.
So, Uncle Ted refers to Tim Anderson as Neo, aka Mr. Anderson, is the best shortstop in baseball. Well, that's interesting. And Uncle Ted, I hope you're right.
Best shortstop in baseball. I don't know what you're smoking, Ted, today, but you got to share it with Casey and I next time you deal with that.
Get any?
But Dan, you have less. But you know what? He's not even close. He's not even the top 10 best shortstop in baseball. So keep going.
Okay. I listen. If he's playing well, I think he is in the top 10.
You know who got hurt that was having a great season?
All right, Ross, I got to run. So
one more. I want your opinion on this.
Casey actually has to go.
I actually have to go.
Casey, you know what? We'll let you go. Ross and I will finish talking.
All right, you guys have fun. Listen to Ross's nonsense, guys. Enjoy it. Talk to you Tuesday.
All right, Casey, we'll see you soon. Ross, tell us what you were going to say there. I want to hear.
I'm just talking about Wander Franco is hurt, and he was having such a great year, and in Tampa Bay, and now he's hurt and he's not playing. So
and I agree with Anthony Rodriguez. I think Wander Franco is the best shortstop.
All that hype and everything that was going on last year, he was not horrible. He just average. But I mean,
well, he was a rookie. You know, rookies struggle to hit. Even Mike Trout struggled to hit. And by the way, I've been saying this. Mike Trout, I love the guy. He's a legend. But in fantasy, he's overrated at this point.
Did you see his home run he hit last night? It was like 500 feet.
Well, he's still a monster, but he's kind of become like a 3.5 category player now. You know, he doesn't run, and his average is like 275.
He's not stealing bases. You're 1,000% right.
He's still a great player, but I just think there's a little bit.
He's 32 years old.
32. I think that's right. So, I'll check. Okay, now Uncle Ted says, watch. Tim Anderson will get hot quickly and remind everyone, including the Dodgers, why he's the best. And I hope you're right, Uncle Ted. Guys, let's wrap up here. Ross, it's been a pleasure. Casey, it was a pleasure, even though you had to leave us.
He was all bitter when he left. It was great.
He was so desperate. He's a people pleaser, so he was trying to get out of this without telling people, I'm sorry, I got to bail. But I think everybody enjoyed that moment. Ross, it's been a pleasure being here with you. Guys, we'll be back here next Thursday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Always a pleasure talking with you guys. Great observations, great suggestions. Let's keep it coming. Keep fighting. You got to work on that roster throughout the year. And this is the time when people start tuning out. You can take advantage. Bring home a winner, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Ross.